to ascertain the presence of a quorum.
Thank you, Madam President. Councilor Baker. Here. Councilor Campbell. Here. Councilor Siomo. Councilor Asabi George. Councilor Flaherty. Here. Councilor Jackson. Councilor LaMartina. Councilor Linehan. Councilor McCarthy. Councilor O'Malley. Councilor Presley. Councilor Wu.
Present.
And Councilor Zachem. Madam Clerk?
I got a promotion.
Oh my gosh.
I have been informed by the clerk that a quorum is present. And at this time, would all councilors and guests please rise as I invite Councilor Flaherty to the podium to introduce today's clergy. And after the invocation is delivered, please remain standing as Councilor Flaherty will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilor Flaherty.
Thank you, Madam President, and good afternoon, everybody. I have the pleasure of introducing Reverend Laura A. Hart, who is the pastor of the United Baptist Church in Jamaica Plain, where she has served since 2008. Her experience includes a great deal of work, particularly around prison ministry and volunteer service at the Massachusetts Correction Institute in Framingham, as well as the Nashua Street County Jail. In 2001, Reverend A. Hart was appointed chaplain of the Nashua Street Jail, where she's been a spiritual mentor to hundreds of inmates and their families. Her commitment to prisoner rehabilitation has been truly life-changing and remains an important part of her life today. In addition, Reverend A. Hart also leads pastoral leadership and chaplaincy. She is active at Dimmock Centers, the UMass House for Women with HIV and AIDS, along with Rosie's Place, homeless shelter for women, and currently chairs the Criminal Justice Committee for the Black Ministerial Alliance. So she's also coordinated worship service and Bible study at the former Long Island shelter. And it's a great pleasure to have her back with us once again. And she's given so much to our community, and we're grateful to have her here to offer some words of invocation and words of wisdom. So without further ado, Reverend Laura A. Hart. Welcome back.
Thank you. Good morning. I would start off with words of encouragement because we spend so much time getting beat upon. And even in our own personal lives, we get ridiculed, and we never really have somebody pat us on our back. And not that we're always looking for it, but it's always nice to have somebody say nice things to you and for you. So I would say to you today, don't get weary in well-doing. You're doing a great work, and you're not going to get a handshake. Sometimes you go, why did you vote against that? And why did you vote for this? And why? Instead of saying, you know what? I'm glad that you're serving. I'm glad you have an opportunity to represent the people. And that's your attitude. No matter if no one compliments you, no one says you're doing a good job, know within yourself that you're doing it for the right intention and the right reason, and God will reward you openly. Be encouraged. It's not easy. The work that I do is not easy. Every day, sometimes I wonder, can I just stay in the house? Can I just put the pillow over my face? And I'm sure you have the same, same feelings. We're human, and humans have that same tendencies. But as a people, we have to stay together. We have to rally together and work hard. Society, and if you would excuse my French for this morning, or whatever, how you want, our slang, we're living in a crazy society. No one's compassionate. No one loves like you should love. No one loves unconditional. Everyone has their hand out. Can you do this for me? Can you do that for me? What do you want to do? I'll do this, you do this for me. But you have a responsibility to the city, to the Commonwealth, as a team, to say that that's not how we work. We are concerned about every community, every neighborhood in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, where their background is in the prison, HIV, AIDS, homeless, whatever, no medical insurance, money, no money, rich, poor, mental health issues, whatever the situation is, you're empowered to serve the people. But as you're serving the people, you're serving yourself. Because you can go home and say, you know what? I did the best that I could do. I can't conquer everything, but today I did something different than I did yesterday. Is that all right? If we were in church, you say amen. And you can add a little humor to your day. Everything is not, you have to loosen up a little bit. You do, even with each other. You're a team, and team works together, not against. So don't get weary in well-doing. Stay on the good fight. Everybody's fighting each other outside. But if you fight in here, your ex will see the good result out there. Fight, not with this, not as one that beats in the air, but fight for righteousness. Fight for the right things because it's the right thing to do. And what you do in here will work openly on the out. Let's bow our heads for a word of prayer. Eternal God, it's rough. Some of us didn't even want to get up this morning to face what we have to face today. But you said you'll never leave us or forsake us. You're with us no matter what. And so we're going to count on that because your word is true and you have not let us down at this particular time. So I pray for every councilman, every worker, every administrator that comes in these buildings from the mayor on down to the least to the greatest, from the greatest to the least. But you're great above all. And in you don't sleep or slumber. So Father, as decisions are made here, let them do it to the best of their ability. And when they can't do it anymore, that they rely on you. Yes, this is not a religious sector, but we need to count on you for everything. Because as we count on you, you'll give us the right decisions and you'll make our pathway straight. So speak life into this committee. Speak life into City Hall. Speak life into the city of Boston. Speak life into the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. This great Commonwealth that it is, because there's so many diversity that it can make things the better and not for the worse. So we pray, God, that as this meeting resides, that you would be in this meeting and that we leave here, that something will be resolved, that there be no more conflict, but only victory. And we thank you for what you're about to do. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much, Reverend Laura and Councillor Flaherty. Thank you for the motivation and the encouragement this morning. We're going to take a quick recess because there's supposed to be a special presentation this morning, but the counselor who is making it is not yet in the chamber. 1 second. Council will be back in session. We'll do the presentation at the end of the meeting. Moving on to formal business. If there are no objections, the minutes of last week's meeting will stand. Seeing and hearing none, the minutes from last week's meeting are approved. Communications from His Honor the Mayor, Madam Clerk.
Docket number 0504, message in order for your approval, an ordinance amending CBC Section 16-26.4, regulations of construction hours at 18-1 and 19-2B, Saturday permits, filed in the City Clerk's office April 1st, 2016.
Docket number 0504 will be referred to the Committee on Government Operations.
Docket number 0505, message in order authorizing the Environment Department to accept and expend a grant of $28,500 awarded by the National Park Service, passed to the Massachusetts Historical Commission for the FY 2016 survey and planning.
Docket number 0505 will be assigned to the Committee on Environment and Sustainability. Reports of public officers and others, Madam Clerk.
Docket number 0506, notice was received from the mayor of the appointment of Mark Fortune as a member of the Boston Employment Commission for a term expiring July 1st, 2016.
Docket 0506 will be placed on file.
Docket number 0507, notice was received from the mayor of the appointment of Sister Margaret Leonard as a member of the Neighborhood Housing Trust for a term expiring January 12th, 2018.
Docket 0507 will be placed on file.
Docket number 0508, communication was received from the city clerk of the filing by the Department of Neighborhood Development regarding the annual report of affordable rental and non-rental housing.
Docket 0508 will be placed on file as well. And moving on to reports of committees, Madam Clerk.
Docket number 0407, the Committee on Planning and Development, to which was referred on March 16, 2016. Docket number 0407, message in order for the confirmation of the appointment of Craig Galvin as a member of the Zoning Board of Appeals for a term ending March 7, 2019. Submits a report recommending the order to be confirmed.
Chair recognizes the Chair of the Committee on Planning and Development, Councilor Linehan.
Thank you, Madam President. We had held a hearing a week ago, this Friday, on March 31st. We had Jeff Hampton down from the Zoning Board of Appeals, and also Mr. Galvin was here himself to testify. Mr. Galvin is a lifelong resident of Dorchester. He's the appointee for the real estate section of the ZBA. He's someone who's a real estate broker. He's worked on projects at the BERA, both as a constituent and advocate, and as someone who had clients. So he has a full understanding of what the job would entail. His appointment seems one that would do well from all of the neighborhoods of the city. I encourage all of my colleagues to support his confirmation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Linehan. At this time, Councilor Linehan moves for acceptance of the committee report and passage of docket 0407 to confirm Craig Galvin for the Zoning Board of Appeals. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. Docket 0407 has been adopted and Craig Galvin has been confirmed.
Docket number 0189, the Committee on Government Operations and the Special Committee on Charter Reform, to which was referred on January 27, 2016, docket number 0189, a petition for a special law regarding an act relative to election procedures in the city of Boston, submits a report recommending the home rule petition ought to pass in a new draft.
Chair recognizes the Chair of the Committee on Government Operations. Oh,
Joint Chair.
why don't we take them each separately, because there'll be two separate potential votes. And I would leave it up to the two co-chairs to defer to who would like to speak first.
That's all right.
Excited.
Don't hurt.
Rock, paper, scissors. Okay. We'll hear first from Government Operations and then from the Special Committee on Charter Reform. Councilor Flaherty.
So you would like to address them one at a time, Madam
Yes,
President?
please.
Okay. So with respect to docket 0189, obviously I want to recognize the great efforts of our colleague who is chairing the charter reform. And so I come in as a clearinghouse, basically, because it's a home rule petition and has to go through the Government Operations Committee. That said, he's put 2 years of effort and work into both docket 0189 and 0191, a series of hearings, working sessions, and what have you. So with respect to docket 0189, I'm recommending passage in a new draft, and I'll just cite the technical change that was made, and then through the chair defer to the lead sponsor and someone who's really has been carrying the water and doing yeoman's work to try to get to a point where we're voting on two charter changes today. And the first of which is docket 0189. After hearing, we made the technical changes that refer to section 2 of chapter 376 rather than section 2-54. And it was the deletion of section 3, as was determined, was an unnecessary clause. And then again, that was working through the committee and also with consultation with the city's law department, as well as council as well. So through the chair, if we can defer it to the lead sponsor. And again, I'll be moving for passage in a new draft. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Counselor Flaherty. Counselor Baker, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Today I rise to ask the council to vote on docket 0189. Docket 0189 is a home rule petition relative to election procedures in the city of Boston. This act would allow an individual to seek the nomination for only one elective office at the same municipal election. This home rule requires potential candidates to show their intentions and commitment to provide fairness to voters in a possible, in the unlikelihood if someone were running for city council and the mayor and they won the mayor's race, it would provide a cost savings to the city. So I ask for your vote on docket 189 today.
Thank you, Counselor Baker. At this time, Counselors Flaherty and Baker move for adoption of the committee report and passage of docket 0189 in a new draft. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. Madam Clerk, if you would please call the roll for docket 0189.
Counselor Baker.
Yes.
Counselor Baker, yes. Counselor Campbell. Counselor Campbell, yes. Counselor Siomo. Counselor Siomo, yes. Counselor Asabi George. Counselor Asabi George, yes. Counselor Flaherty. Counselor Flaherty, yes. Counselor Jackson. Counselor Jackson, yes. Counselor Lamatina. Counselor Lamatina, yes. Counselor Linehan. Counselor Linehan, yes. Counselor McCarthy. Counselor McCarthy, yes. Counselor O'Malley. Counselor O'Malley, yes. Counselor Presley. Counselor Presley, yes. Counselor Wu.
Yes.
Counselor Wu, yes. And Counselor Zachem. Counselor Zachem. Madam President, we have a unanimous vote for docket number 0189.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Docket number 0189 has been passed unanimously in a new draft.
Docket number 0191, the Committee on Government Operations, to which was referred on January 27, 2016, docket number 0191, petition for a special law regarding an act regarding the terms of office for city councilors, submits a report recommending the home rule petition ought to pass in a new draft.
Chair recognizes the Chair of Government Operations, Counselor Flaherty.
Thank you, Madam President. Very similar to docket 0189. All the credit and work and effort is due to our colleague, City Councilor Frank Baker. This is a home rule petition that would establish 4-year terms for the Boston City Councils that would run concurrent with the mayor. The election department came in and testified that a citywide election cost over $800,000 for the preliminary and an additional over $800,000 for the final. So approximately 1.6 plus million for the preliminary and the general. So there's a significant cost savings. But to address the technical changes before I defer to the lead sponsor, after the hearing on government operations, we worked with the law department to make a couple technical changes. We replaced biennial with quadrennial to reflect the 4-year term in sync with mayoral elections. And we also amended Section 13 of the charter. And again, that was through the great effort of our colleague who is charged with charter reform, to eliminate the biennial election in case of a vacancy in the office of mayor. And this section actually will continue to keep the power with the city council to call for a special election if a vacancy occurs within 8 months remaining in a mayoral term. So again, serving as co-chair and having the Committee on Government Operations be the clearinghouse, we'll be moving to be recommending that this matter ought to pass in a new draft, but through the chair would defer to the lead sponsor once again. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Counselor Flaherty. Counselor Baker, you have the floor.
Thank you again, Madam President. Docket 0191 is an act regarding terms of office for city councils. This act would change the current 2-year term to 4-year terms. As we all well know, there's a very low turnout in this off-year elections when at-large and district city council seats are the only contested seats on the ballot. Having 4-year terms will boost voter turnout by scheduling council elections at the same time as the mayoral elections. Running for office every 2 years requires a lot of time and effort focused on organizing a campaign and raising money instead of devoting 100% of one's time to the job. 4 years gives the councilor a better opportunity to focus solely on the job and our constituents and crafting policy. Lastly, this initiative saves city money that could be going to our schools, infrastructure, public safety, traffic calming measures, and housing. The city of Boston spends approximately $800,000 on a citywide election, $3,200 per precinct, $1.6 million per election cycle. So I ask my colleagues today if you believe that this home rule petition allows you to do your job better, then please vote with us. If you don't think that it allows you to do your job better, then you don't have to, you won't hurt my feelings, you don't have to vote for it. There was one, I was talking to a reporter, and he was talking about off-year elections and how, you know, that maybe that is better for people to get in. I would argue that in a low turnout off-year election, although this was the exception, we had two good candidates, I may add, that outworked their opponents and were able to get on this body in an off-year election, low turnout, which would normally, I think, benefit the incumbent. I think a good candidate is a good candidate, whether if you're running 2 years or 4 years. So I ask you for your vote on this here. I believe it will allow us as a body to be strengthened and also us as councils to do our job better. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Baker. Councilor McCarthy, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Thank you, Councilor Baker, for all his hard work on this topic. The Boston City Council is forced by this election cycle to be in a never-ending campaign fundraising mode. The challenge with this is that some believe this is a counterintuitive idea, but it is one that will lower the cost of elections, $1.6 million or more in that ballpark. That's an enormous savings for the city of Boston. It'll reduce the constant need for us to fundraise. I've said many, many times that the hardest thing about this job is, one, being away from your family, and two, asking people that you know who may not have it to write you a check. It's an incredibly difficult and awkward position to be in, but you know that your friends and your colleagues and people who believe that you're doing a good job will write that check, even though it may put them back a little bit. And the most important thing, it gives the elected officials on this body more confidence to try ideas that challenge the status quo. Think outside the box. And in a 2-year cycle, it's very difficult to do that, as we're constantly in campaign mode. So I will be voting in the affirmative on this. And again, I thank Councilor Baker for his hard work.
Thank you, Councilor McCarthy. Councilor Linehan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise to commend Councilor Baker and Councilor Flaherty for getting this matter out on the floor today, and also Councilor O'Malley, who worked with Councilor Baker for much of the 2 years of my term as president to see that these matters went forward. I think these are two good matters. This one specifically is one that just makes sense. When you can spend and save, spend money on other things other than an election, like $1.56 million, it seems to me to be a really good idea. I think the most compelling argument, though, is the one that Councilor McCarthy makes. The fact that you need to go out and raise money consistently throughout your tenure on the council is one that impedes not only your ability to do your job, but also one that at times can seem compromising. And we're always looking and talking about the public financing of campaigns and how to get money out of the election process. And this is one way to do it. The money will only be there half the time in the middle of all of this. I've raised a considerable amount of money in my 9 years here on the council and in highly competitive elections, both on mayoral election years and off. And it is extremely time consuming and one that does not allow you to do your job at the best that you possibly can. So I'm supporting this wholeheartedly. I commend both chairs and ask you all to do the same.
Thank you, Councilor Linehan. Would anyone else? Okay. Councilor Presley, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I will be voting in the affirmative for this. I do believe that ultimately that continuity will allow for a more thoughtful and deliberate policy approach. For those that would be worried about 4-year terms, perhaps serving as an obstruction or obstacle to democracy and challenge, actually research has shown that a 4-year term will likely result in a greater, caliber and number of candidates and choices for the electorate with which to choose from. So, I'm excited this change will lead to an even greater participation by the electorate, higher turnout, prospective candidates, and ultimately, I think, to greater accountability with a longer record by which to be judged. So I will be voting in the affirmative.
Thank you, Counselor Presley. Would anyone else like to speak on the matter? At this time, Counselors Flaherty and Baker move for acceptance of the committee report and passage of docket number 0191 in a new draft. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll on docket 0191?
Thank you, Madam President. Counselor Baker?
Yes.
Counselor Baker, yes. Counselor Campbell? Counselor Campbell, yes. Counselor Siomo? Counselor Siomo, yes. Counselor Asabi George? Counselor Asabi George, yes. Counselor Flaherty? Counselor Flaherty, yes. Counselor Jackson? Counselor Jackson, yes. Counselor Lamatina? Counselor Lamatina, yes. Counselor Linehan? Counselor Linehan, yes. Counselor McCarthy? Counselor McCarthy, yes. Counselor O'Malley? Counselor O'Malley, yes. Counselor Presley? Counselor Presley, yes. Counselor Wu?
No.
Counselor Wu, no. Counselor Zachem? Counselor Zachem, yes. Madam President, we have 12 votes in the affirmative and 1 vote in the negative.
Thank you, Madam
On
Clerk.
docket number 0191.
Docket number 0191 has passed in a new draft. Matters recently heard for possible action, Madam Clerk.
Docket number 0316, resolution to hold a hearing to consider naming the Hyde Jackson Square neighborhood of Jamaica Plain, Boston's Latin Quarter.
Chair recognizes the sponsor of this matter, Councilor Matt O'Malley.
Thank you, Madam President. I want to begin just by welcoming fourth graders from the Linden School, the First Lady of District 5. Fifth graders, I'm sorry. Fifth graders for Linden. Where is Mrs. McCarthy? The First Lady of District 5 and her colleagues have brought them in, so welcome. It's always great to be with you guys. I just wanted to very briefly thank you, Madam President and Councilor at Large, Anissa Asabi George, for coming to a terrific hearing Monday night. Despite the snow, we had a packed house at the Connolly Library in Hyde Square. This is an initiative that came to my office from some of the incredibly talented youth of the Hyde Square Task Force. Hyde Square and Jackson Square, that whole corridor in Jamaica Plain, for generations has boasted just a wonderful, vibrant, diverse community, particularly the Latino community that has been thriving there. It has the highest percentage of Latino-owned and operated businesses, among the highest percentage of native Spanish speakers. And the hope and the purpose of this hearing was to designate it as Boston's Latin Quarter, or perhaps Boston's Latino Quarter. This is something that's been in the books and on the works for many, many years. It does not change the name of Hyde Square or Jackson Square or Center Street. It merely adds a designation that would allow us to really thrive in the cultural district. So we heard from a number of young people, heard from a number of academics. We heard from people who've been working on this for many, many years. The mayor's office was there through Chief Felix Arroyo, Chief Jerome Smith, and Tony Barros, Special Advisor to Mayor Walsh, who had been working on this issue for many years as well. So there seemed to be incredibly deep and wide support, and we're going to decide what the next step should be in terms of a cultural sub-district designation. So I ask that this remain in committee for now and stay tuned. But thank you again for your leadership and all the colleagues who've expressed interest in this. I think it's a great thing for the neighborhood. Not only is it going to help with local businesses, help with civic pride, help identify what a thriving, wonderful part of our city, Jamaica Plain and the Hyde Jackson Quarter is. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor O'Malley. Chair recognizes Councilor Asabi George.
Thank you so much, and thanks to Councilor O'Malley for hosting that hearing in the district and in the neighborhood. The energy in the room that night was exciting, and the group of youth in particular from the Hyde Square Task Force youth group were incredibly thrilled to be there and participate in this process. And I'd like to just congratulate Councilor O'Malley on an incredible hearing, and again, that energy, I can't use that word enough, and the desire, I think, for the community to move forward in a rapid fashion is an understatement, to say the least. They're excited about this, and I look forward to watching this proceed through our channels and through the city's channels, and move quickly as possible on this matter. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Asabi George. Docket number 0316 will remain in the Committee on Arts, Culture, and Special Events.
Docket number 0380, message and order authorizing the police commissioner to accept and expend a grant of $1,365,434.46 from the Massachusetts Executive Office of Public Safety and Security to the City of Boston's Police Department to support the FY 2016 Senator Charles E. Shannon Community Safety Initiative.
Chair recognizes the Chair of the Committee on Public Safety and Criminal Justice, Councillor Campbell.
Thank you, Madam President. So yesterday, the Committee on Public Safety and Criminal Justice held a hearing on this grant. We heard from Damone Bills from the Boston Police Department's Research and Development Team regarding docket number 0380, which is in the amount of $1,365,434.46. And it's for the Shannon Community Grant. We've been getting this grant for 10 years. We get it annually. It helps the city combat gang violence by focusing on 5 key areas. One is social intervention. Another is gang suppression, there's an opportunity provision, organizational change, and community mobilization. Of the 20 partner organizations this year, 6 are actually new, while the other 14 have been receiving the money for probably the last 10 years. They have changed the way in which they actually give this money out. They have an RFP process now, which was very exciting to hear about. There's flexibility attached to it, so if an organization doesn't use up all their funds, another organization has access to it. So I recommend that this docket 0380 ought to pass. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. At this time, Councillor Campbell moves for acceptance of the committee report and passage of docket 0380. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. Docket number 0380 has been passed.
Docket number 0439, message and order authorizing the Fire Commissioner and the Chief of the Department to accept and expend funds from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Office of Public Safety and Security, Department of the Fire Services, in the amount of $695,000, bringing the total fiscal year award to $2,445,000 for the Boston Fire Department Training Division.
Chair recognizes the Chair of the Committee on Public Safety and Criminal Justice, Councillor Campbell.
Thank you again, Madam President. We had a hearing yesterday, and it also included, in addition to the Shannon grant, this grant for the fire department. It's docket number 0439. We heard from Kathleen Judge, who is the Deputy Commissioner at the Fire Department for Finance. She discussed what the $695,000 would be used for. It's for training purposes, including hazmat and terrorist training. The money was used to replace antiquated equipment at many of the firehouses. It also was used to support fire officers who are dealing with PTSD. Most of the fire officers or actual firefighters are veterans, and so most of them coming back from wars. So this funding also is used for those purposes as well. We had a robust conversation about ways in which we can continue to access state funds. I applaud Commissioner Finn, who actually has stepped up and brought in more money from the state than the city has seen in a long time. So for these reasons and many more, I recommend that docket number 0439 ought to pass. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. At this time, Councillor
I'm looking over here at my colleagues. I also want to acknowledge my colleagues who came to the hearing. So thank you, Councillor Flaherty, Councillor Sabi George. You're like my Vice Chair, Councillor McCarthy, Councillor Matt O'Malley. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. At this time, Councillor Campbell moves for acceptance of the committee report and passage of docket number 0439. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. Docket number 0439 has been passed.
Docket number 0442, order for hearing regarding the Grand Prix of Boston.
Chair recognizes the sponsor of this docket, Councillor Bill Linehan.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you for chairing this important hearing yesterday, which went on for over 3 hours, and almost every member of the body participated in some way. This is an event that has been splashed all over the newspapers, and the details have not really been brought forward in a public forum. So what happened here yesterday, similar to what we did in the Olympics, is that we created a public forum where folks could interject their ideas and their opinions on this particular race, which is brand new in the South Boston waterfront area. We had a lot of questions and a lot of opinions through your leadership. We know that there'll be additional hearings to flush out some very important ideas, one specifically around public safety and the other specific to environmental conditions and potential hazards in and around the course. So I think it was extremely productive and good for the council to do. Thank you for hosting it so quickly.
Thank you, Councillor Linehan. Councillor Flaherty, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. One thing that I found incredulous yesterday's hearing was that this organization that's been here as long as they have, promoting and trying to put the pieces together for an international racing car event, haven't even reached out to the local sports organizations and some of the local civic associations and some of the local nonprofits. So they made it clear at the hearing yesterday that they're going to make a couple donations to worthy causes, but at the end of the day, the most impacted community that will be handling and hosting 170,000 people over a 3-4 day span, coupled with the congestion, the construction, all the noise, the environmental impacts, that community that will be dealing with all of those issues, arguably can point to sort of one single partnership with this organization. So as it stands right now, quite frankly, I'm indifferent to the fact that whether they even come. I know it would be a great event, but until they really sharpen their pencil and get out and start to meet the folks from the impacted community, and I say to my district colleagues, not one of you would argue or would disagree with the fact that there was an event happening in your local district and they weren't reaching out to the local organizations, and be it in any one of my district colleagues' districts. So I can speak as an at-large councilor, but I also live in that neighborhood that will be hosting this event, and I'm not going to put up with it. And so my suggestion to folks at Grand Prix is they better get out to the neighborhood, they better start to build those relationships, and given that it's a sporting event, it's an international sporting event, I suggested last night that a first start would be to reach out to the local sports programs. Youth hockey, the Little League, soccer, lacrosse, Pop Warner, the sailing program, the Yacht Club Take a Kid Fishing program. Those are the sporting programs in the impacted community. Clearly, there's enough to go around, and there will be opportunities. I think that the Greater Boston Food Bank is getting a significant donation. I think our fallen heroes and veterans, great causes. We love our veterans. We understand the plight around hunger and homelessness, so all good stuff. But when it comes to the directly impacted community, and I would argue that none of my district colleagues would object to this, is that you wouldn't put up with it. And I know Councilor Linehan's not going to put up with it in his district, and as an at-large member who lives in that district, I'm not going to put up with it either. So if IndyCar is listening, they better be on the horn this morning, or I'll be looking to work with the lead sponsors to convert this to a resolution whereby this body goes on record saying, we don't want IndyCar, not this year, not next year, and they could go to other destinations. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Flaherty. Docket number 0442 will remain in the Committee on Arts, Culture, and Special Events. Motions, orders, and resolutions, Madam Clerk.
Docket number 0509, Councilors O'Malley and Campbell offer the following order for hearing regarding traffic calming measures and the Vision Zero Boston program.
Chair recognizes Councillor O'Malley.
Thank you, Madam President. Today I'm proud to join my dear colleague and friend, Councilor Andrea Campbell from District 4, in filing an order to discuss the implementation of traffic calming measures as well as the progress of the Mayor's Vision Zero Boston and any update in terms of roadwork safety in the city of Boston. I want to begin by commending Mayor Walsh. Obviously, this is something that he feels very, very strongly about with his promotion of the Chief of Streets, Chris Osgood, to the implementation of the Vision Zero program, to other initiatives in terms of pedestrian safety and street work. It's something that we all feel very, very strongly about. In fact, Councilor Baker deserves credit too last week for introducing a ordinance that would allow us to lower our speed limit. In many ways, this is a refile of a hearing order I did back in January of 2012, more than 4 years ago, in terms of new traffic calming measures, where we discussed using new technology. Solar-powered speed signs, for example, making sure we had more delineators, making sure we had what's known as virtual speed lines, where the paint of the street in Dorchester Ave, for example, it's used to great effect to help the traffic calming measures. This is about pedestrians, obviously, cyclists, and drivers. We need to recognize the fact that we still are a city that depends very much on cars. So it's looking at the holistic approach. It seems that several weeks can't go by where there's not another example of drag racing, as there was in Councillor Zacum's district. God forbid a fatality, right in Councillor McCarthy's district near mine several months ago. Some of you may remember, I think Councillor Flaherty may, in 2005, I ran for city council at large. I had a headquarters on Washington Street in Rosdale near the Pleasant Cafe. 2 young kids were drag racing. One crashed right through the headquarters. Fortunately, he was fine, but destroyed a building. I mean, this has been happening for time and time and time again. I think we have an administration that really takes it seriously, but I think we have an opportunity to weigh in as district councilors and certainly at large councilors. We may know some of the other priority corridors that need to be addressed. Vision Zero specifically targets 4 of them. Mass Ave, Stony Brook and Jamaica Plain, the Talbot Norfolk Triangle and Codman Square in District 4. There's more that we need to do. So I think this is a great opportunity to just sort of call in the relevant stakeholders as well as members from the state. In District 6 and District 5, we have a number of, really throughout the city, but particularly in our district in Southwest Boston, we have a number of state-run parkways and streets that we need to make sure we have the right apparatus and ways that we can just make it a safer city for pedestrians, for drivers, for cyclists as well. So look forward to a prompt hearing and thank again my colleague for partnering with me on this initiative. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Malley. Councillor Campbell, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm going to start with a thank you. So I want to thank Councillor Matt O'Malley for partnering with me on this. I know this is an important issue for everyone on this body. And I think it's time to have a hearing again to discuss this. Every day we're receiving numerous calls from District 4 residents, not just about fatalities, but also infrastructure, things that we can do about traffic congestion, things that we can do to reduce crashes. And I think some of the calls express tremendous frustration, sometimes anger, because they don't actually see things in the infrastructure change. I do want to acknowledge Vision Zero, Complete Streets, as well as BTD, because we do have some pilot programs coming to Talbot Norfolk Triangle area, as well as the Codman Square area. But people want to see more. So I hope that everyone here will join us in this effort in pushing the city to actually do a little bit more. We're approaching, obviously, budget season, and this is the time to have the conversation. So thank you again to Councillor O'Malley. I also think it's critical as we think about Vision Zero and what that's supposed to accomplish, that we actually start taking more action if we want to actually accomplish those goals by 2030. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. Councillor Presley, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Just rise to commend the makers. It is a timely discussion to revisit. We certainly want to make sure that we are making the critical and formidable investments to achieve the goals of Vision Zero, and you can't get there if we are making zero investment. So if we do want to arrive at a place of zero collision, zero fatality, this is really a matter of both the public safety and public health. And so I commend you both for your leadership, and I wish to have my name added. And the other thing I would just ask as a part of this, I'm sure they'll bring it anyway, but we did do a hearing a year ago pushing for the crash data report, which is directly informed by the cycling community to know what are those areas that are sort of hotspots and the most vulnerable. So it would be great to just find out if that report is informing where the investments are being made. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Presley. Councillor Zacum, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I want to thank the sponsors of this order. I think it's incredibly important. As Councilor O'Malley said, we recently had yet another major accident on Beacon Street in the Back Bay. There was well over 100, probably 150 residents who met again just last week or week and a half ago to discuss their concerns about pedestrian cyclist safety in the Back Bay neighborhood. They were joined by folks also from other neighborhoods across the city with similar concerns. BTD, I think, is taking these issues very seriously, I think, as evidenced by Vision Zero, the mayor's plans on this, and updates we're seeing to infrastructure across the city. But we need to continue to work on that. We need to also make sure that, as Councilor Baker introduced recently, once again, trying to get control of speed limits here in the city of Boston away from the state is so important on this issue, because it's, cars going 30, 35 miles, 40, 45 miles an hour are much more dangerous. It's much faster when you're on a street, when you're a pedestrian, when you're a cyclist near it. So I think these issues of safety on our streets for everyone, for people, for bikers, for walkers, for joggers, for people in their cars is so important. So I would ask that my name be added. I look forward to the hearing And I know that it's all of our responsibilities to continue to push this agenda forward to make our city safer. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Zachem. Madam Clerk, I believe you got it previously, but I neglected to ask you, could you please add Councillor Presley's name, also add Councillor Zachem's name, add Councillor McCarthy, Councillor Linehan, Councillor LaMattina, add Councillor Siomo, Councillor Baker, please add the chair's name, and Councillor Flaherty, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Just would like to rise to have my name added, commend the authors, and as we all know, there isn't a civic association or community meeting in the last several years that we haven't all gone to where speeding cars, traffic calming measures, asking the police department to enforce, the traffic laws has not been a hot button boiling issue. So extremely welcome and timely, and look forward to a hearing to address not just these issues, but if we maybe this may be an opportunity to take a hearing out to many of the different community organizations so that they know, as their community leaders, both district and at-large councils, that we're hearing them loud and clear, we've been hearing them loud and clear, and that it's time now to sort of find creative ways to address this issue. So please add my name. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Flaherty. Madam Clerk, please add Councillor Flaherty's name. Councillor Sabi George, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. And thank you to Councillors O'Malley and Campbell for bringing this to the floor and bringing it to this body. I would ask during the hearing process and conversations going forward, especially in what Councillor O'Malley referred to as priority corridors, that we're considering our schools, our playgrounds, and places where our elderly either live or are as part of that priority zone. We think about little kids, raised sidewalks can create more visibility for those little kids. And for some of our seniors who may be wheelchair bound or as we age, we sometimes get smaller, and that those raised crosswalks also create more visibility for those individuals. So thank you very much, and I ask that my name be added. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sabi George. Madam Clerk, please add Councillor Sabi George's name. Councillor Jackson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise to compliment the authors of this very important legislation. Last week, I actually spoke about raised sidewalks, and I actually didn't mean that. I actually meant raised crosswalks. And the clerk looked at me very, very, very funny. So I just wanted to go on record and note that is another traffic calming measure. But I also think we also need to look at this through the lens of equity and note that this is something that we need to do across the city as a whole. And I think there's an education component that has to come along with this around every neighborhood in the city, about how we have multimodal methods of transportation that are safe for everyone. And it's not only, and there was a recent WBUR report about the inequities in that space, and that really tugged at my heartstrings. And I think there's a lot that we have to do in and around all aspects of the city, in particular in the neighborhoods that have a great deal more poverty, and you actually see an increased number of people riding bikes. So if we're going to have a healthier city, we definitely want to make sure that people don't get exposed to potential fatalities. So if you could please add my name, thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor. Madam Clerk, please add Councillor Jackson's name. Councillor Baker, you have the floor. Okay, thank you very much. Docket number 0509 will be referred to the Committee on Parks, Recreation, and Transportation.
Docket number 0510, Councillor Baker offered the following resolution declaring April 12th, 2016 as Library Workers' Day in the City of Boston in recognition and appreciation of Boston Public Library staff.
Councillor Baker, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Before you today is a resolution proclaiming April 12, 2016 as Library Workers' Day in the City of Boston in recognition and appreciation of Boston Public Library staff. National Library Week is an annual celebration of contributions that our nation's libraries and their employees make. For more than 168 years, the Boston Public Library has provided excellent service for free to all ages, ethnicities, and socioeconomic backgrounds. It's important to recognize the unique contributions of all library workers and would like to proclaim Tuesday, April 12, 2016 as Library Workers' Day in the city of Boston and urge all Bostonians to recognize the staff of this treasured Boston institution. And on behalf of the library workers, the president of AFSCME 1526, Elisa Cadillac, is here today. I hope I said that right. Elisa Cadillac is here to just represent her workers. So I ask for suspension and adoption. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Baker. At this time, would anyone like to add your name to this docket number? Madam Clerk, would you please add Counselor Campbell's name? Please add Counselor Siomo, Counselor Sabi George, Counselor Flaherty, Counselor Jackson, Counselor LaMattina, Counselor Linehan, Counselor McCarthy, Counselor O'Malley, Counselor Presley, Counselor Zachem. Please add the chair's name. This will be a nail biter, but at this time, Counselor Baker moves for suspension of the rules and adoption of docket 0510. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. Docket 0510 has been suspended and adopted.
Docket number 0511, Counselor Jackson offered the following order for a hearing to examine the possible benefits and opportunities provided by the Affordable Care Act's community benefit requirements to the city of Boston.
Counselor Jackson, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I bring this forward because one of the interesting aspects of the Affordable Care Act is that nonprofit hospitals actually have to prove to the IRS what their actual community benefit is. And that could actually mean, in particular for communities in their catchment area, additional funding for resources, in particular to close disparities. And with the number of hospitals that we have in the city of Boston, I think this is critical. And this legislation actually kicks in, I believe, in May. So some of the meetings have begun to happen, but I think it's really critical that the council actually be on notice, and also that hospitals and hospital-related organizations actually come to us and have that conversation with us about what is happening relative to the outreach, and also how we coordinate our efforts relative to closing disparities in the city of Boston. We know that, and I always bring it up, but in my district, from one side to the other side, there's a 33-year difference in life expectancy. So we have a lot that we can do here, and in particular with great hospitals, those disparities still exist. And so we have an opportunity to take it to that next level with this legislation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Counselor Jackson. Docket number 0511 will be assigned to the Committee on Healthy Women, Families, and Communities.
Docket number 0512, Councilors Baker and Presley offered the following resolution in support of House Bill 4623, an act to reduce sexual exploitation of victims of human trafficking.
Chair recognizes Counselor Frank Baker.
Thank you, Madam President. On March 14, 2016, Representative Michael Day of Stoneham filed House Docket 4623, an act to reduce sexual exploitation of victims of human trafficking. House Docket 4623 is supported by a bipartisan group of over 30 legislators and advocates, including Casa Myrna, the Eva Center, and Representative Coppinger, Hunt, Madero, and Ryan from the Boston delegation. If enacted, this legislation will update existing Massachusetts human trafficking laws by bringing Massachusetts in line with 29 other states and allowing survivors to petition courts to vacate certain criminal convictions related to the period when they were victimized by human traffickers. Currently, the procedure for vacating convictions for prostitution-related crimes is very difficult, and as we all know, criminal convictions create major obstacles for individuals seeking housing, employment, and other quality-of-life matters. According to the Federal Bureau of Investigation, human sex trafficking is the most common form of modern-day slavery. Estimates place the number of domestic and international victims in the millions. The city of Boston has a population of individuals who are currently victimized by the commercial sex trade. Last year alone, 62 human trafficking cases were reported in Massachusetts, and many more go unreported. This legislation will help survivors of human trafficking obtain justice and move forward with their lives. Therefore, I ask my colleagues to support me and my good colleague, Councilor Presley, who would like to thank you for all the work that you do on a day-to-day basis in this space. In endorsing House Docket 4623 and urging the state legislature to pass this petition in as expeditiously as possible. And I would also, we have a copy of 4623 in front of everybody here today, and we would also like to suspend and adopt. This is a resolution that we're in support of this House Docket. Thank you.
Thank you,
With
Councilor.
that, I'd like to, again, give it over to my more eloquent colleague. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Baker. Councilor Presley, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. We spoke a great deal on the issue of human trafficking in our last meeting with the ordinance that Councilor Baker and I put forward. I have to say, it is incredibly heartening to have a governor, a mayor, a legislature, and a city council all talking about and working concertedly on this issue when it wasn't that long ago when people were in denial that it even existed. You know, every meeting we recite the Pledge of Allegiance, and at the end of that, every meeting when we say justice for all, I always say someday. And you know, this legislation is something that gets us closer to that same day. When you say justice for all, it really does mean justice for all, and including and especially people who are carrying convictions when they were victims of exploitation. So we're making great strides in reducing the demand and ending this modern slavery and sexual exploitation. But it's time that we ensure that the survivors are able to get connected to the short and long-term care and specialized services that they need, and ultimately to get the justice that they deserve. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Presley. Councilor Jackson, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I want to thank both Councilor Baker and Councilor Presley. I think it's actually also very critical that men step up in this space. And I really want to thank you, Councilor Baker, for the work that you do, and Councilor Presley for the work that you do and have done for so long in this space. I think we also need to acknowledge when we look at fighting crime in the city of Boston, I wish that the gang unit and the human trafficking unit were together. Because if you look at any of the organized gangs in the city of Boston, these things are hand in hand relative to what's going on in the community. And they're exploiting people by selling them drugs, but they're also exploiting people by human trafficking and selling people's bodies. So I think it's absolutely critical that we push this legislation forward at the state level. And also that at the city level that we really are vigilant. The thing I like about this is that, again, these are victims and we need to help people get out of that life. And we need to take those people who are exploiting them and continue to increase their sentences. And I don't say that lightly because I have been someone who's pushed for sentencing reform. But this, what's happened here, we've been way too lax. And that has meant that people have really accelerated. And many of our neighborhoods, Councilor Bacon and I have had this conversation. This is still very visible and sadly even visible when young people are getting on the bus to go to schools. We need to roll our sleeves up and do right by folks, and then also help people get the help that they need. So I'd like to have my name added. And again, just real kudos to both of you for your leadership there.
Thank you, Councilor. Madam Clerk, would you please add Councilor Jackson's name, add Councilor Linehan's name, Councilor Flaherty, Councilor Siomo, Councilor Campbell, Councilor Sabi George, Councilor LaMattina, Councilor McCarthy, Councilor O'Malley, Councilor Zachem. Please add the chair's name. Docket number 05, at this time, Councilor Baker moves for suspension of the rules and adoption of docket number 0512. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. Docket number 0512 has been adopted. Personnel orders, Madam Clerk.
Docket number 0513, Councilor Wu for Councilor Siomo, offer the following
Councilor Siomo
order.
moves for suspension and passage of docket 0513. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. Docket 0513 has been passed.
Docket number 0514, Councilor Wu for Councilor Siomo, offer
Councilor
the
Siomo
following.
moves for suspension of the rules and passage of docket 0514. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. Docket number 0514 has been passed. There are no late filed matters in the hands of the clerk. so nothing needs to change with today's agenda. And at this time, would anyone like to pull a matter from the green sheets? Okay, before we move on to the consent agenda, there is one late filed matter for the consent agenda, which is a special presentation that I'd like to invite Councilor McCarthy up to make.
So anytime you open your mouth in the chamber, they say you could commit political suicide. I'm actually committing suicide because it's Lee Blasie's birthday today, and she will kill me now. So come on down, Lee Blasie. Come on. Yep. All good. Hi, Lee. So, the two councils in District 5, myself and Council Wu, be it resolved that before the City Council extends its appreciation to Lee Blasie. I didn't even make you do this. You didn't even make this up yourself. Your birthday and your outstanding contributions to District 5 office, the neighborhood of Rosendale, and the residents of the City of Boston. Therefore, be it resolved that the Boston City Council hereby proclaims April 6, 2016, Lee Blasie Day in the City of Boston. Song. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to you.
I know I'm older than dirt, but I told him no more birthdays. I finished, I think, at 60. That was the end.
Having a birthday is better than the alternative.
That's true.
So, can we grab a picture? Real quick one?
To both of you.
Yep. Picture.
You didn't even say what the number was.
No, we didn't say what the number was.
Both of you.
I could, though.
No. We can breathe? No?
Hooray!
Thank you, everybody.
We're going to do an hour right after. Okay. Sorry, everyone. We're going to do one quick additional photo. Alyssa Kadillik has been kind enough to stay with us to represent the library workers. We were going to do it after the meeting, but since we're all up and about.
No, I want to come back to the other side.
Back there.
Okay.
Great, thank you. And thank you again.
So there was just one late filed matter for the consent agenda, which was the Lee Blasey resolution. Any objections to adding it? Hearing no objections, the matter is added to the consent agenda. Chair moves adoption of the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. Ayes have it. The consent agenda is adopted. And at this time, if everyone could please rise, all guests and members, please rise as we prepare to adjourn in memory of the following individuals. For Counselor LaMattina, Kevin F. Kane, Paul T. McKinley, Stephen Paulson. And for Counselor Linehan, Francis Markins. A moment of silence, please. Thank you. Chair moves that when the council adjourns today, it does so in memory of the aforementioned individuals, and we are scheduled to meet again Wednesday, April 13th at noon. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Council is adjourned.